Hi, welcome back to Colorado and Company. We now have an incredible story for you. The Drop Box is the journey of one man making an everyday difference in the lives of abandoned children, a difference that is literally saving their lives.
It's a sad fact, hundreds of unwanted babies are abandoned on the streets of Seoul, South Korea every year. Many of them do not survive.
And this tragic loss of life moved the pastor to set up a way for saving unwanted babies.
I first read an article about Pastor Lee in June of 2011, and it was all about this pastor in South Korea who had built a mailbox for abandoned babies.
Here to share the story of the Drop Box is Kelly Rosati. She's Vice President of Community Outreach for Focus on the Family and herself an adopted mother. Nice to see you. I'm so excited that you're here. You know, recently there was a story of a mother who in California, she dropped off her baby at a fire station because she felt she couldn't take care of the child. And I guess, you know, that was in the news everywhere and people were shocked about it. But when you go to a place like South Korea, I think that's something that happens daily. Is that true?
Well, there have been several hundred babies that have been abandoned on the streets of South Korea regularly, and that's really what drove Pastor Lee, the man who is the subject of this movie, to build the Drop Box so that the babies wouldn't die and be abandoned on the streets.
And how did Focus on the Family discover this story?
Well, we met the young USC film students who produced this story, and we were absolutely captivated to hear more about this regular, everyday man who just simply poured his life out with his wife on behalf of kids that nobody else wanted.
Wow.
He was willing to say, bring them to me, don't let them die.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand here and make sure that we do something and we don't just hear about it and then move along with our day. He actually built this box, and over 600 babies have been saved as a result.
Oh my goodness.
And he and his wife, listen to this, he and his wife are actually parenting 15 kids. Many of them have profound disabilities. So they're really everyday heroes and doing for their community, I think, what most people want to do for their communities every day.
They are definitely going to have a few more jewels in their crown for sure.
The baby box is South Korea's first and only box to collect abandoned infants.
Hundreds of unwanted babies are abandoned on the streets of Seoul, South Korea every year.
The tragic loss of life moved the pastor to set up a way for saving unwanted babies.
위험함 속에서 버려진 아이들이 있고 또 길거리에서 그래서 이제 베이비 박스라는 것을 만들게 됐고.
Why produce a film about it though?
Well, again, the story came to fruition because there was a young USC film student named Brian Ivy who read about the story of Pastor Lee in the LA Times. And as he read about it, he describes that he quit eating his cereal and he was captivated to read about this kind of heroic, gritty, everyday love that put itself on the line. And he went and contacted this pastor and said, I want to make a documentary about you. And Pastor Lee responded back, Google translated internet, and said, I don't know what a documentary is, but you come stay at my house.
Oh,
and so,
cool.
yeah, so this young USC film student and a bunch of other 20-somethings went over there, captured this story, and now it's going to be seen on more than 700 theaters March 3rd, 4th, and 5th. And so we're really excited about the impact this film's going to have.
Focusing on the good in life.
Absolutely.
Finally, I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
And why do you want moviegoers to go see the Drop Box, and what do you hope that they take away from it?
Well, I think, like you said, in these times that we live, in which we live, people are really wanting to hear some good news. And this is a story that, while it may seem a little discouraging, it is discouraging to hear about people who feel so helpless and hopeless that they don't have any other choice. That's a bummer. I mean, there's no getting around that. But when you see the hope and the joy and the love on the faces of these kids and on the faces of the pastor and his wife, you really leave changed, and you leave asking yourself, what can I do to make a difference? You know, we're not all going to be Pastor Lees, that's for sure.
Right.
But there is something we all can do, not only about the orphans that are across the globe, but we actually have orphans right in our own community, in our own city here, that people don't often realize, and there's something we can all do to be involved.
And adoption is near and dear to your heart, you and your husband's heart. You adopted. Why did you decide to do that?
You know, honestly, what happened was we just heard, we were living in Honolulu, Hawaii at the time, and we heard that there were kids in our city who were modern day orphans and who needed families. And we just didn't know that, honestly. And we just started to think, well, wait a minute, if there's kids who need families, we have a family.
Right.
If we don't do this, who's going to do it?
I can open my doors.
So and so just started that way. And about 6 years later, we had 4 kids, and now it's 15 years later, and we're real tired.
So you have 4 kids?
We do. We have 4 kids.
How many are adopted?
They all were.
They're all adopted, and this is your family right here on the cover of this book, Wait No More. I love it. You got a good-looking family.
The kids are really beautiful. I can say that because I had nothing to do with it.
Oh, I don't know. You're a hottie yourself, Mom. Oh, gosh, what a beautiful family. And what can people do to help orphans?
Well, the first thing everyone can do if they go see this film, actually buying tickets to the film will help Pastor Lee. We're raising money to support Pastor Lee and his family and the work they're doing to save the abandoned children in South Korea, but also the work that we're doing here domestically in the U.S., in Colorado, and in states across the country to get modern-day orphans who are in foster care into the forever adoptive families that they so long for. And so they could join with us in that effort. We have something that's called the Global Orphan Fund that we're doing, where people have an opportunity to give. And then we also have ways that people can engage very, very simply. So for example, if you've ever thought about this, if you could cook, or you could drive, or you could clean, you could actually make a difference. And what do you're probably like, what are you talking about? But when you do this, when you bring home a child with a trauma history, it can be a really tough journey. There can be difficulties involved. And the people who do it need to have help, and they need their community to come around them and to be willing to be a part of it. And so if you can do any of those very simple things, you just never know how you could get involved in your own neighborhood, your own community, your own church group.
That's what I was going to say. It's not just as an individual, but your community or your church can get involved also, right?
Exactly. And at the end of this Dropbox film, we're actually going to have resources available to help people know how they can get in groups, and maybe you and your friends get together every Friday night or whatever, and you decide, you know what, we're going to support this adoptive family that's in our church or that's in our community, and it's not going to be so hard.
Make the meals.
Make a meal. Get to know the kids and take them and give the parents a little bit of a break. Do some respite. Do those simple little things like that, and you can have a huge, huge impact.
Well, you are a very sweet lady. Thank you for doing everything that you have done and sharing it with us here on Colorado and Company.
It's our pleasure.
Yes. You can act in love right now to care for orphans and to support the work of Pastor Lee by attending the movie The Dropbox. For movie times and for theaters, just visit thedropboxfilm.com. Let me give that to you again. It's thedropboxfilm.com. And other questions, just call 1-800-FAMILY. That's 1-800-232-6459. We'll be back in just a few moments.